So in the summer of 1998, I was camping with the Boy Scouts. We were out of a scout ranch in the Rocky Mountains called San Isabel Scout Ranch. So the way this Boy Scout camping retreat worked is we're there for a week, and everybody is there to do camping, nature stuff, right? But everybody is also signed up for their classes. Now they're really like camp activities, right? But the goal of them is to learn how to do something and earn a merit badge, right? They even implied to us when we were signing up, like, you shouldn't be signing up for stuff that you already have a badge in or you're close to getting a badge. This would be an opportunity to seek out new badges, right? So I went for cooking, archery, and canoeing, right? I did canoeing because there just weren't a lot of opportunities around me to earn that one. I didn't know anybody with a canoe. My Boy Scout troop did not have one. So that one I figured would be one that I couldn't get. And then I did cooking because I love cooking. And I did archery because, just similar to canoeing, I didn't have ready access to a bow and arrow. And I thought it was something that was super neat that I just didn't have a lot of opportunity to practice outside of this scout camp. So, I signed up for those three. Now, it may surprise some people to know, but in my younger days, I took my scouting very seriously. I later did not, actually shortly after this happened, even though this had nothing to do with it. I just sort of figured out around the age of 14 that, like, I have the scouting handbook, right? And I've been camping, I've been out in the woods for years, right? By this point, it's something I've been doing since I was around 5 or 6 years old. So, for me, it wasn't something I needed the scouting organization for. But at this point in time, summer of '94, I did take scouting very seriously. Now, my troop, Troop 307, out of Alamosa, Colorado, I had a few different guys that were with me in that archery class. The focus of the archery class is important because that's where this story's heading. Most of the people at camp that were helping you earn the merit badges were, I don't know if they were volunteers or if they were employees, but they worked at the camp. They were teens almost exclusively. And they were all teen guys except for at archery. Archery was a cute teenage girl, just about 2 years older than the rest of us. We were all around 14, 15. Now, she had invited a couple of us into the woods to smoke some pot. Now, this is actually really dangerous for someone involved with scouting to do in the 1990s, where marijuana was still a bit of a boogeyman, especially in the circle of scouting, which has always sort of been dominated by conservatives and church groups. So marijuana was still considered a pretty big deal in the 90s in scouting, and it was actually pretty risky for her to suggest to anyone that they go off into the woods with her and smoke some pot. But I don't know if she had heard about our troop ahead of time, or if she was just a really keen judge of character. But we were the right troop for her to make that offer to. I'll say it that way. My introduction to Troop 307, when I graduated from Webelos into Boy Scout, the introduction was a written apology from a bunch of different members that they had to recite to us for besmirching the name of the Boy Scouts of America by getting high during one of their camping trips. So it was something that had already gone on in the troop, and the punishment hadn't exactly been severe. I had never smoked pot before, but not only were cool guys going to be there, but like the cute girl who invited us all to be there. And so I went back to camp after archery. She said it would be around 4:30, and she told us there was a little clearing near this abandoned shower complex. It was a brick building where they had some showers built back in the 50s or 60s. I don't know a whole lot about the building itself. That's where those of us who had to shave, that's where we shaved, because the sink still worked, but the walls on the shower were like crumbling. I don't know if the showers themselves worked inside. It was like a group shower, gym shower kind of situation. But she said there's a clearing near that complex, and that would be a good place to do it. So I went off into the woods to find that area. Now, my mistake was not staying with my fellow scouts when they were looking for this. I don't know if they ever found her and had that marijuana, but I did not. So I missed the clearing entirely, didn't find her, didn't find the area that was described to me, and so I just kept walking, figuring maybe I just needed to go a little farther, till I got to the fence line of San Isabel. And it was there at the fence line, there was a little bit of a bend in the fence that was easy to get through. And I thought, okay, that makes sense, right? You got to cross the border outside of the Scout Ranch, otherwise we'd be getting in trouble for doing it on, like, Boy Scout land, right? That's, to a 14-year-old me, that made perfect sense. So I go through, right? I walk in the woods for another about 10 minutes. I'm ready to turn around. And I see a black mass up ahead of me. Now, of course, having taken scouting very seriously, and also growing up in the mountains in a family that does hunt and camp a lot, my first thought was, okay, there's a bear. And I wasn't that scared or anything. I had seen bears before, and I knew that, that on average, the bear doesn't want anything to do with you unless it's protecting its young or something like that. So I prepared to just, slowly back away. It wasn't even paying me any attention. And then it stood up. And immediately I saw that there's no way it was a bear. Bears have a certain shape to them, and it's man-like, but definitely not simian, Like the proportions are way different. When a bear is standing up on its hind legs, just like the length of its legs, the way it holds its arms, like its arms are always kind of up like this instead of hanging down by its side. So yeah, a standing bear, it looks a certain way, and this was not that. When it raised up, it definitely had the silhouette of a man, a tall man. I would say at the time around 7 feet. I could maybe think possibly as much as 8. But at the distance it was, and from everything I had learned in orienteering, I would have guessed around 7 feet tall. And definitely covered in fur, right? that was another thing later on, after this had happened. There was a rational part of my brain that tried to make sense of this. And it said, you know what, there was probably some hunter out there in like a ghillie suit or something, but like this wasn't long enough for a ghillie suit. This was very obviously the texture of fur. Fur looks a certain way, moves a certain way. And it started loping off. The long strides and the arm swinging. And one thing that I noticed about the movement of the body more than anything else, and I noticed this, and then I saw it brought up in a Bigfoot thing a few years after, because this was back in 1998 that this happened. It was around 2006, 2007. I saw a Bigfoot thing where they were talking about the simian nature of Bigfoot, how he would be more ape-like, and how he probably wouldn't have been able to like move just his head, right? He would have needed to move most of his upper body, at least move his shoulders as well. And that's what I saw. He turned partway around, right? And it was a breathing grunt kind of noise. I don't know, like if you've heard a horse like snort, right? But a little bit deeper than that, right? Yeah, and then turned like part of the body without just the head moving, and then kept on going, and that was my encounter with Sasquatch, and I didn't tell anyone for almost a decade, because, like I said, I was a very good boy as a Boy Scout, and I was trying to meet up with some teens to smoke pot on a Boy Scout trip that my parents had paid way too much for. So I didn't want to get in trouble, but I also didn't want to be like the bad kid. That's not to bring up any of the tons of pot I ended up smoking just a few years later in high school. But at the time, yeah, I didn't want to get in trouble, and I did kind of try to push it out. And then after I had talked about it a few times, it became a lot easier. Because it's weird, you know, when you're a young teen, and definitely not what I was expecting to happen on that trip. Not expecting that to happen during that specific interaction on the trip. So that's my Sasquatch story, and I would bet money most of you watching this, it's the first time you've ever heard it. Even those of you who know me, it's not something I've talked about in detail with very many people. So thanks for listening. I'd like to remind you to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, spread the word on the video, tell your friends, all of that nonsense. Leaving comments is good too. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter, I'd love to hear about it. I've met a few other people in person that have had one, but I'd love to hear your stories. I'm going to do more of these types of videos since it's October. More of my like paranormal stories. This is the only one that really involves me personally. I had a Sasquatch encounter, and I felt like talking about it. But you know, other topics I do want to talk about, being from the San Luis Valley, and the San Luis Valley has some of the highest rates of paranormal activity for its region size in the United States. And a lot of people just don't know about that. So I do want to talk more about that stuff, of which I have become very knowledgeable over the years. But this is the only one really involving me personally. Thank you again for listening. I really appreciate it. And I'd love to see more of you on the channel. Thanks. Bye.